wa ta'ala, with the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the proper belief and the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the mean to get one's dua accepted, the means for all means of goodness in this life and hereafter. But to go to someone's grave, to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of these things, where is that in the deen of the Anbiya? This is something that people invented when the shaitan whispered to them to change the truth and the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to fall into the shirk and associating partners with Allah. And the reason why we need to constantly talk about this, to forbid it and to stay away from it and to warn ourselves from it, is because you know that your enemy, the shaitan, he's working day and night on this particularly, the shirk. And if people do not warn themselves from it, right, it has to fall. And this is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If people don't talk about these things, and even if somebody would say, well, there's no grave here in America where Muslims, they go to worship where they ask from, right? It doesn't have to be present, right? And if, just the fact that this is the work of shaitan, this can happen. Also people, they seek these things when they travel or from their homes, right? They can ask whoever they think is a righteous man dead, they would ask him besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as the ulama, they say the place that you would find people not warning from shirk and associating partners with Allah, you would find that place, the most place that has shirk and associating partners with Allah. This is how it goes, this is the way of Allah. So he says here that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, after the Prophet ﷺ died, many times they will be tested by all kinds of tests in this life, whether it's drought or less in provisions, or fear from their enemies, or sins, and so on. And he says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنْهُمْ يَأْتِي إِلَى قَبْرِ الرَّسُولِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. None of them used to go to the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the grave of Ibrahim alayhi salam, which anyway it is not authentically proven that this is the grave of Ibrahim alayhi salam as it's present in Palestine. And no grave of the prophets. They would never go to any of them, and they would say, "Nashku ilayka jadd az-zaman." We complain to you with the drought and the enemies and this and that. And none of them would say to them, "Say laha lana," ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us or for your ummah, that Allah would provide for them, give them victory or forgive them. All of this, as he said, بل هذا ما يشبهه من البدع المحدثة التي لم يستحبها أحد من أئمة المسلمين فليست واجبة ولا مستحبة باتفاق أئمة المسلمين. He says that this is nothing, this is the innovations in matters of the deen. None of the Imam of the Muslimin, they said that this is mandatory or recommended or anything. This is innovation in the deen. كل بدعة ليست واجبة ولا مستحبة فهي بدعة سيئة وهي ضلالة باتفاق المسلمين. Any بدعة that is not mandatory or recommended, if it's mandatory or recommended, that means it's not bid'ah, right? It's the way of the Prophet ﷺ. So every bid'ah is an evil bid'ah, and it's dalala, it's astray, it's deviation, باتفاق المسلمين, by the consensus of the Muslimin. And this is something that has to have the belief. And Shaykh said Taymiyyah, when he says about this particular situation that it's bid'ah, some people they took from that it's not shirk. No, he means by this that this is shirk. Even if, and we said that last time, there's difference between someone going to the grave of someone and saying, "Oh, so and so, help me and help your ummah," or whatever, or saying the different way is to say to him, "Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our help." Of course, there's difference between the two statements, right? Both are wrong and both are shirk, right? One is the worse than other, but they're both associating partners with Allah. Because this is definitely not, the first one is clear shirk, of course, when they ask the dead and they don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second one, if they say to the dead, "Ask Allah for us," they're asking them by something that is not for the dead to be asked from. You can say that to someone that is alive. But someone that died, they cannot be asked. They cannot be asked this question. That means they took a mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create as a mean, which also makes it shirk. And as he said with the bid'ah, وَمَنْ قَالَ فِي بَعْضِ الْبِدْعِ إِنَّهَا بِدْعَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فَإِنَّمَا ذَلِكَ إِذَا قَامَ دَلِيلٌ شَرْعِيٌّ أَنَّهَا مُسْتَحَبَّةٌ. If somebody says that this is a good bid'ah or whatever that name is mentioned, then there has to be a clear evidence that this is something recommended. But if it's something not recommended or neither it's wajib, mandatory, then no one from the Muslimin should ever say, or they never said that this is from the hasanat or from the good deeds that a person would seek closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from. So, and then here is to sums up the situation here, وَمَنْ تَقَرَّبَ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِمَا لَيْسَ مِنَ الْحَسَنَاتِ الْمَأْمُورِ بِهَا أَمْرَ إِيجَابٍ وَلَا اسْتِحْبَابٍ فَهُوَ ضَالٌ مُتَّبِعٌ لِلشَّيْطَانِ وَسَبِيلِهِ مِنْ سَبِيلِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Whoever تَقَرَّبَ إِلَى اللَّهِ, whoever drew himself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which with what is not from the hasanat that we are ordered to do, whether it's as an obligation or something recommended, he is ضال, he is deviant, متبع للشيطان, he is follower of the shaitan, and his path is the path of the shaitan, as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud رضي الله عنه said, خط لنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خطا وخط خطوطا عن يمينه وشماله, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and this authentic hadith in Muslim Imam Ahmad and others, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم draw for us a line on the ground like this, a straight line, and he draw lines perpendicular to it on the right and on the left. ثم قال, then he said عليه الصلاة والسلام, هذا سبيل الله, this is سبيل الله, this is the path of Allah. وهذه سبل, and these are paths, right? Many paths on the left and on the right. على كل سبيل منها شيطان يدعو إليه. On the head, by the top or the head of each path, there's a shaitan calling people to it, right? Then he recited, عليه الصلاة والسلام the ayah, وأن هذا صراطي مستقيما فاتبعوه ولا تتبعوا السبل فتفرق بكم عن سبيله. That indeed this is my salat, this is my straight path. فاتبعوه, then follow it, and do not follow the paths, otherwise you will be dispersed from the straight path. So it's either one path that people have to follow, which is the way of the Prophet ﷺ, which is a straight path, it's a clear one. There is no ifs and maybes and things like that. It's very clear, right? If it's maybe yes, maybe no, that means it's not deen. The deen is clear. Otherwise, how can that be the truth? The truth is something that should be very clear. But things that people would have to interpret things and twist it and go back and forth, then we run away from this. We have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the clear way. We are followers, we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on the nas, nusus, the text, not what other people they follow. And this is what we should do. And it's a very sad thing, sometimes you would find a person saying, Alhamdulillah that Allah showed me the truth. MashaAllah, if he's talking about the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, this is great, yes, we should be very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we follow the truth, the clear ways from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But sometimes you would hear, or you would read, you would see someone saying that about a matter of, something that is happening nowadays, for example. How would you know that you're following the truth? That these people are right, or these people are right, or this opinion is good, this, and you would say, Alhamdulillah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me see the truth, and there's no clear evidence. It's all people's perceptions and things like this. How would you know for sure? Right? When to find the truth, the Prophet and the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, which is a part of the verse that is mentioned in the Quran, Allahumma fatir as-samawati wal-ard, alim al-ghayb wal-shahadati, anta tahkumu bayna ibadika fima kanu fihi yakhtalifun. Ihdini lima ikhtalafa fihi min al-haqq bi-idhnik. Right? Which means, after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, guide me to what have been different in matters of the truth among the people. Sometimes the truth is not known, it's not clear. Although the truth is supposed to be clear, but the matters that are clear is enough for us. If it's something that is not clear, right, we have to stay away from it till it becomes clear. This is the type of way that we have to do, because you won't be asked then in the day of judgment about something that you didn't do, why didn't you do it, but you will be asked about what you did, why did you did it, right? If you don't know what is right and what is wrong, then there is that excuse. So this is, as he says, the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the straight path, which is the clear way. This is, he says, فَهَذَا أَصْلٌ جَامِعٌ. What is the أصل جامع? What is this a very important principle. Anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything that draws closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's not, we're ordered to do it, or it's recommended from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever do it, he is deviant, he's taken a path of the shaitan. He's not following the way the Prophet ﷺ. This is mandatory thing for everyone that believes in Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they have to take that principle. ولا يخالف السنة المعلومة وسبيل السابقين الأولين من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين تبعوهم بإحسان باتباع من خالف السنة والإجماع القديم, which means, and it's to follow the way when the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is made clear, and the way of the foremost of the muhajirin and the ansar and those who followed them with goodness, then a person should follow that and not to follow those who differ among themselves or change the way or follow other than the way of the Prophet ﷺ. لا سيما وليس معه في بدعاته إمام من أئمة المسلمين. Especially when they invent these things and there's no imam from the imam of the Muslimin would follow this. Like this issue of Alwaselah, like that, for example. Who among the four imam of the schools of thoughts would support this? Nobody. Right? In which people would follow them in matters of fiqh, and some of them they would call this matter, it's a matter of fiqh. It's not a matter of fiqh, it has a portion of it clearly in matters of aqeedah. But they won't follow their imam in this. There's no imam of the deen that the ummah has agreed that they are from the imam of the deen would follow this. It's all things that people made up and invented and so on. And he gets into some details of this, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, first he says that a person should not talk about matters of the deen without knowledge. People should have the knowledge before they speak, to have the knowledge of what is mandatory, what is recommended, and so on. Otherwise, a person is committing a major sin. And he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade taking the graves of the prophets or the righteous people as masajid, as places of worship, as masajid, as the hadith in Sahih Muslim. And again, this is hadith in Sahih Muslim. So this is a text, this is a nas, this is something that we're ordered to follow. عن جندب بن عبد الله أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال قبل أن يموت بخمس, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said 5 days before he died عليه الصلاة والسلام, إن من كان قبلكم كانوا يتخذون القبور مساجد. Those who before you, they used to take the masajid as graves. ألا فلا تتخذوا القبور مساجد فإني أنهاكم عن ذلك. Do not take the graves as masajid, as places of salah and worship. فإني أنهاكم عن ذلك. I forbade you from this. Right? And when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they heard this hadith, the matter was clear. Then you get somebody after hundreds of years, he already decided that he wants to take the graves of righteous people as masajid. So what he's going to do with this hadith? Is he going to say that the hadith is not authentic? No, people will expose him, right? He can't say that. So what would he say? He would say, yeah, the hadith is correct, is authentic, of course, but it doesn't mean what you guys are thinking, right? It means فَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْقُبُورَ مَسَاجِد means what? He says, do not take the graves as places of, or a spot to put your head on in sujood. MashaAllah. It's given so much understanding and fiqh that he explained the hadith and twist the meaning of it to mean like this. Prophet ﷺ said, أَلَا فَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْقُبُورَ مَسَاجِد. Right? Do not take the graves as masajid. Masajid is the plural of masjid. Right? We know what a masjid is. Yes, the masjid comes, the root meaning comes from what? From sujood, right? So he said it means the sujood, right? Can a person says this linguistically? Maybe, but it takes us back to the principle that it's supposed to be, you put your iman on this principle, which is to understand the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the Hadith based on how it was understood when the Prophet ﷺ said it, right? Not by people twisting. They can even twist even the word kuffar, right? Because the kafir can be used as the tiler or the farmer. So anything that has kufr, make it to the farmers, not to the... Of course this is, a deviation that is so clear. Plus, it's by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it's not just this hadith, it's the other hadith, as the Prophet ﷺ said, أولئك شرار الخلق, these are the worst or the most evil people, those who would build masajid on top of the graves. He said, إذا مات الرجل الصالح فيهم بنوا على قبره مسجدا. right? If a righteous man dies among them, banaw means they would build on top of his grave a masjid. How are they gonna explain this one? They can't, right? So the matter is so clear. So to build the masajid over the qubur, over the graves, this is such an evil thing. And those who did that, they sought the wasila, where it's a way for people to have their dua accepted or their salah and so on, which is all means of shirk and associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course the masajid is built for what? To establish the 5 daily salah. So when people would start praying the 5 daily salah like this is definitely an evil thing. And we know that it's the certain times, as he mentioned, the certain times that the Prophet ﷺ forbade us from praying at certain times, because makes us imitate, or looks like we're imitating the people of shirk, those who associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They make ibadah at this time. One of these times, after Fajr to sunrise, and after Asr till Maghrib, right? And before Dhuhr, before the Adhan of the Dhuhr. And what was mentioned with Maghrib and the Fajr, after Fajr and before Maghrib, is because the people, those who worship the sun, they do their acts of worship at this time. Another narration, this is that the sun rises in between the two horns of shaitan. So although a person can say, but I'm praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, optional salah, what's wrong with that? I'm not praying to the sun, I'm not doing anything bad. And that's why at-tashabbuh, or imitating the disbelievers, does not need an intentions in this. Just the fact that a person physically would do something, imitating the disbelievers, it's haram, even the intentions are sincere. So imagine then when the matter is so clear, where it's not just imitating them, it's doing the acts of worship like them. So this is what negates the matters of the Tawheed. Talked about the qubur and the graves, then what is then the visitation of the graves of a Muslim? Right? A person might have this shubha now, that you have many of those who are righteous that are buried in the masajid now, right? So we want to go visit them, right? So isn't it something virtuous and mustahab for us to visit the graves? Yes. There are, as he said, there are 2 types of visitation to the graves. Ziyaratun shar'iyya wa ziyaratun bid'iyya. There is ziyarah shar'iyya, religious one, valid one, according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And there is the ziyarah bid'iyya, the one that is innovative. People invented things that have haram things in it. The ziyarah shar'iyya, the permissible one that we have evidences clear in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is that the maqsood, or the intent of the visiting to the graves, is to make dua to the deceased, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the deceased, right? So a dua lil mayyit, because the mayyit, the one that is dead, is in need of the dua of those who are alive. So they go to try to benefit the dead, not to benefit from the dead, but to benefit the dead by making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, like the janazah and so on, right? And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade his Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from making dua by the grave, or making salah on the hypocrites and the disbelievers. But mainly the hypocrites have it's mentioned, of course disbelievers, this is obvious, but also the hypocrites, as it's mentioned in Surah Al-Tawbah, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرٍ. Do not pray on someone that died whatsoever, and do not stand by his grave. Stand by his grave to do what? To make dua. So to go to the grave then is to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. So this is from the Sunnah al-Mutawatira. That means there's no doubt on this. Many hadith about those who are alive would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the deceased. And the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he would bury someone, he would say, سَلُوا لَأَخِيكُمُ الثَّبَاتَ فَإِنَّهُ الْآنِ يُسْأَلُ. Ask for your brother to be steadfast, because the questioning of the grave, because now he's going to be asked. He did not tell them, seek some blessings from this great Sahabi that I just buried now, because he's a righteous man. Right? No, he would tell those who are alive, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his thabat and his steadfastness and so on. And he would say salam to the people in the graveyard, Assalamu alaikum ahl al-diyar, min al-mu'mineen wal-muslimin, wa inna insha'Allah ta'ala bikum lahiqun. He would say salam unto them, ahl al-diyar, the people of the dwellings that they are in, from the believers and the Muslims, and inshallah we will join you. Allah knows best when. ويرحم الله المستقدمين منا والمستأخرين نسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية اللهم لا تحرمنا أجرهم ولا تفتنا بعدهم, which means may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy to those who are before us and those who are after us, those who died and those who did not die. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us and for you al-afiyah, to be safe from all harm. Oh Allah, do not deprive us from the reward from them by visiting them and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا تَفْتِنَّ بَعْدَهُمْ, and do not deviate us after them. Right? This is how the Prophet ﷺ himself would make this type of ziyarah. So this is for the believers only. As for the ziyarah or the visitation to the graves of the kuffar, this is not permissible. And the hadith in Sahih Muslim and others where the Prophet ﷺ came to the grave of his mother, فَبَكَى وَأَبْكَى مَنْ حَوْلَهُ. He wept عليه الصلاة والسلام, and he made those around him weep. Then he said, استأذنت ربي في أن أستغفر لها فلم يأذن. I took the permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ask for forgiveness for her. He did not give me the permission. فاستأذنته أن أزور قبرها فأذن لي. He said, I took the permission to visit her grave, and he gave me the permission. فزوروا القبور فإنها تذكركم الآخرة. Then he said, visit the graves because indeed it reminds you of the hereafter. And so visiting the graves to benefit the deceased by making dua, or for the person himself to benefit by seeking rewards from Allah, because this is the order of the Prophet ﷺ, to be reminded of the hereafter, to be reminded of the reality of this life, since this is what everybody's place will be. Doesn't matter how big of a house that a person lives in, how much luxurious life he is, then after that he will be in just a hole in the ground, right? So if a person would see this, he would act accordingly. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the human beings, different than the animals and so on. Animals, they don't see what they need to do for something that is going to happen after 1 hour, right? Human beings, they see their ma'al, their outcome is this, so then they need to act. And this is what, with the intelligence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, basic intelligence, should lead the wise ones to then act of what is coming ahead, the everlasting life, and not to be deceived by this world. The ziyarah al-bid'iyah is the innovative one, is the haram one, is when people would seek some help from the dead, making dua to them, or asking them for some shafa'ah, or thinking that if a person makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the grave of someone, then without making shirk whatsoever, just being there, it's a virtuous, good spot. That the dua there to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is a good dua. But because it's next to this person, this is permissible, this is not permissible, right? And it's from the minor shirk that would or might lead the person to fall into shirk. And someone ignorant seeing someone alim or so standing by the grave of someone making dua, he doesn't know what he's doing, so he thinks that this is part of the deen, so he would go ask the disease right away because the alim was doing the same thing, right? So this is definitely, it's not permissible whatsoever. Nobody ever done this, right? And this is something that would bring the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet ﷺ said, اشتد غضب الله على قوم اتخذوا قبور أنبيائهم مساجد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger is اشتد, meaning become so severe on those people who would take the graves of their prophets as masajid, as places of masajid, places of salah and so on. وقاتل الله اليهود والنصارى اتخذوا قبور أنبيائهم مساجد. قاتل Allah means may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy them or dua against them. The Yahud wal Nasara, they took the qubur or the graves of their prophets as masajid. He was saying that alayhi salatu wassalam, يحذر ما صنعوا, warning from what they did. فلا تتخذوا القبور مساجد فإني أنهاكم عن ذلك. Do not take the qubur as masajid. I'm forbidding you from that. How can the statement of the Prophet ﷺ be more clear than this? Right? And again, for those of you that, some of us are from these types of environments where they see it so much, but for those who never seen this, it might sound just theoretically like this, but when you sit with people that you're surrounded with these masajid, then you see the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ forbidding that clearly. You see what the situation of the ummah is in today, with all of these things that are being worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Clearly worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, clear shirk. One last point, when Ibn Abbas he said, كان بين آدم ونوح 10 قرون كلهم على الإسلام. Between Adam and Nuh there were 10 generations, all of them on the Islam, on the Tawheed. ثم ظهر الشرك بسبب تعظيم قبور صالحيهم. Then the shirk came about as a result of exalting or giving more respect and so on to the graves of the righteous ones and the pious ones. And this is as in the Surah Nuh, وَقَالُوا لَا تَذَرُنَّ آلِهَتَكُمْ وَلَا تَذَرُنَّ مَدًّا وَلَا سُوَاعًا وَلَا يَغُوثَ وَيَعُوقَ وَنَسْرًا, the names of these righteous people. فَلَمَّا مَاتُوا عَكَفُوا عَلَى قُبُورِهِمْ. When they died, عَكَفُوا from الاعتكاف, when you stay in a spot, right, don't move from it, don't leave it, they did the same on their graves. And this is a very widespread act that many people, they think it's nothing to do with shirk. They go and they sit by the grave of someone righteous. Not to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for him, but to make dhikr there. Right? They go sit there and make dhikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but whether they are making him, thinking that they're making the deceased more comfortable, right? Or because he's a righteous man, so it's a good spot to do these types of things. This is all deviation from the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And he mentioned some of these things, the different deals with matters of kufr and dealing with the shayateen and so on. Anyway, we'll stop at this point, inshallah ta'ala. But again, as you see, it's with regards to the only way that is permissible. We have to have the clear evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to seek ourselves close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by these permissible means. Other than that, it's not permissible, and most of it, it's act of shirk and associating partners with Allah.